My name is Caitlin Fletcher, and I'm 17 years old. 3 weeks ago, my parents cut off my schooling until I apologized to their golden boy, my brother Dylan. They thought one ultimatum would bring me to my knees. They thought I'd beg. They thought wrong. I didn't post anything on social media. I didn't throw a tantrum. I didn't need to. I had something better. A full scholarship to Georgetown Prep, a transfer already approved, and 6 months of silent planning they never saw coming. The night my father's smug grin collapsed in front of 40 witnesses, I knew I'd already won, not because I fought back, but because I walked away with my future intact, and there was nothing they could do to stop me. Before I tell you how a school board meeting became my Declaration of Independence, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy this story. I'd also love to know, where are you watching from, and what time is it there? Drop a comment below. Now, let me take you back to where it all started, the night everything changed. The Fletcher house sat in one of those Northern Virginia neighborhoods, where every colonial-style home looked like it came with a mandate: maintain appearances at all costs. 2 Audis in the garage, Whole Foods organic groceries on the granite countertops. The kind of place where success wasn't just expected, it was displayed. I'd lived there for 17 years, but I'd stopped feeling at home around 14. That night, the night that would change everything, I sat at the kitchen island with my SAT prep book open, highlighter in hand, while my parents came through the front door carrying pizza boxes and the sound of Dylan's latest victory. They'd just returned from his soccer game. Again. "Did you see that goal?" My father's voice boomed through the foyer. "Right corner? The keeper didn't stand a chance." "I got it on video," my mother said, already pulling out her phone to replay it. Dylan strutted in behind them, still in his grass-stained uniform, grinning like he'd won the World Cup instead of a regular season game. He grabbed a slice from the box, from his favorite pizza place naturally, and didn't bother asking if I'd eaten. I hadn't. "You should have been there, Kate," Dylan said around a mouthful of pepperoni. Not because he cared whether I came, because he wanted an audience. I'd learned long ago that family dinner meant celebrating Dylan's wins, not my straight A's. Last month, I'd placed first at the regional debate championship. My parents hadn't attended. There was a scheduling conflict, they'd said. Dylan had a soccer banquet the same night. The banquet had been optional. My competition wasn't. I kept my eyes on my textbook and said nothing. It was easier that way. Monday morning hit like a freight train. I heard about it before first period. Whispers in the hallway, phones buzzing with texts, that particular kind of energy that only comes from serious drama. Dylan had gotten into a fight. Not a shoving match. A real fight. Marcus Smith. Broken nose. Blood all over the locker room floor. By third period, the rumor mill had churned out a dozen versions of what happened, but the facts stayed consistent. Dylan had thrown the first punch, and Marcus had ended up in the ER. When I got home that afternoon, my parents' cars were already in the driveway. Both of them. Middle of a workday. That never happened unless something was very, very wrong. I found them in the living room. My father pacing by the fireplace in his work suit. My mother perched on the edge of the cream-colored sofa, hands twisting in her lap. And Dylan, sprawled in the armchair like he was watching TV, not facing the consequences of sending someone to the hospital. Principal Torres had called them in for an emergency meeting that morning. I'd missed that part, but I could fill in the blanks. Dylan looked up when I walked in. Not guilty, not sorry, just annoyed. "Finally," he said. "Tell them." I stopped in the doorway. "Tell them what?" My father turned, his expression carved from stone. "Did you tell people Dylan cheated on his history exam?" I blinked. "What? No, and—" "Marcus said you did," Dylan cut in, leaning forward. "He said you told half the junior class I copied answers off Jenny Martinez. That's why he came at me in the locker room. He called me a cheater and a fraud. I was defending myself." I stared at him. "I never said that. I've never even talked to Marcus about you." But my father wasn't looking at me like he believed me. He was looking at me like I'd already been tried and convicted. "Is this true?" My father's voice was cold, controlled. The tone he used when he'd already made up his mind and was just going through the motions of asking, "Did you tell people Dylan cheated?" "No." I kept my voice steady even though my heart was hammering. "I didn't say anything to anyone. I don't know where Marcus heard that, but it wasn't from me." My mother stood, smoothing her cardigan like she could smooth over the situation with the same gesture. "Caitlin, Dylan wouldn't lie about something like this. You've always been competitive with him." Competitive, that was the word she always used, as if wanting to be seen, to be valued, was some kind of character flaw. "I'm not lying." I looked at Dylan. He met my eyes without flinching, his expression perfectly calibrated, just hurt enough to look like the victim, just defiant enough to look like he'd been wronged. He'd practiced this face his whole life. "Dylan, you know I didn't say that." "You've been jealous since forever," he shot back. "You can't stand that people actually like me." "That's enough." My father held up a hand. He turned to me, and I saw it then. The decision had already been made. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to apologize to your brother, privately and then publicly at next week's school board meeting." The floor tilted under my feet. "What?" "Principal Torres said the board meeting is open to parents and students. You'll stand up and apologize for damaging Dylan's reputation. You'll take responsibility for the harm you caused." "I didn't cause anything." "Until you do," my father continued, as if I hadn't spoken. "We're suspending your college fund contributions and any financial support for school expenses. You need to learn that actions have consequences." My mother looked away. She didn't disagree. She never did. I stood there, silent, while my entire future was held hostage for something I didn't do. That evening, my father called me into his home office. The room smelled like leather and old books, the kind of study designed to impress, with its mahogany desk, framed diplomas on the walls, and a single brass lamp casting everything in amber light. I'd been called into this room exactly 3 times in my life. Once, when I'd gotten a B in freshman algebra. Once when I'd asked if I could get my driver's license early. And now? He sat behind his desk, fingers steepled like he was conducting a performance review. My mother stood near the doorway, arms crossed, silent. "Sit," my father said. I stayed standing. He exhaled through his nose. "Caitlin, I'm going to be very clear with you. If you don't apologize to Dylan publicly at that board meeting, we're not just suspending the college fund. We're cutting off all financial support, tuition to your current school, your debate team fees, your SAT prep course, everything." The words hit like a physical blow. I'd saved some money from tutoring, but it wasn't nearly enough to cover a semester of expenses, let alone college applications. "You're punishing me for something I didn't do," I said quietly. "We're teaching you accountability." He leaned back in his chair. "You're 17 years old. You don't have options. You have obligations. To this family. To your brother." I looked at my mother. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "What if I didn't do it?" I asked, one last time. My father's expression didn't change. "Then you should have been more careful about how people perceive you." That was when I understood. It didn't matter what I'd actually done. It only mattered what they wanted to believe, and they'd already chosen Dylan. I reached into my pocket and felt my phone. The recording app had been running since I'd walked through the door. "Sure," I said. "I'll apologize." My father blinked. My mother's head snapped up. "What?" he said. "I'll apologize." I kept my voice even, calm, the way I'd learned to speak during debate tournaments when my opponent was losing their temper. "At the board meeting, I'll do it." Dylan appeared in the hallway behind my mother, smirking. "Took you long enough?" My father exchanged a glance with my mother. They'd expected a fight. Tears, maybe. Yelling. I'd given them none of that. "Good," my father said, though he sounded uncertain. "We'll discuss the exact wording later this week." Fine. I turned and walked out of the office, past Dylan, who was still grinning like he'd won something, and up the stairs to my room. I closed the door quietly, locked it, and stood there in the dark for a long moment. Then I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. They thought sure meant surrender. It didn't. I opened my email and scrolled to a message I'd received 3 months ago, the one with the Georgetown Preparatory Academy logo in the header, the one I'd read so many times I had it memorized. Dear Miss Fletcher, we are pleased to inform you that you have been awarded a full merit scholarship. I clicked into my drafts folder. The transfer paperwork was already 90% complete. I'd been working on it since April, just in case. Just in case I ever needed an exit. Tonight, I'd realized I did. I pulled up the emancipation petition forms I'd saved from the DC government website and started filling in the sections I'd left blank. I didn't need their permission. I'd stopped needing it 6 months ago. 6 months earlier, I'd been sitting in the back corner of the school library, trying not to cry. It had been a bad week. Dylan had borrowed my laptop without asking and returned it with a cracked screen. When I'd told my parents, they'd said accidents happen, and I should be more careful where I leave my things. Then my mother had missed my final debate tournament of the season, the one that would determine whether I made captain, because Dylan's team had a playoff game. We'd won. I'd been named captain. She hadn't been there. I'd thought I was alone in the library until I heard Mrs. Nguyen's voice behind me. Caitlin? I wiped my eyes quickly and turned. Mrs. Nguyen was my guidance counselor, a soft-spoken woman in her early 50s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She'd immigrated from Vietnam as a teenager, put herself through college, and spent the last 25 years making sure students like me didn't slip through the cracks. I'm fine, I said automatically. She sat down across from me. You don't look fine. And for some reason, maybe because I was tired, maybe because she was the first person in months who'd actually asked, I told her. Not everything, just enough. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Have you ever heard of Georgetown Prep? I frowned. The private school in DC? School. They have a scholarship program, she said carefully, for exceptional students from challenging family dynamics, full tuition, room, board. It's competitive, but your academic record is stronger than most of the kids I've sent there. My parents would never let me transfer. What if you didn't need their permission? I stared at her. She slid a brochure across the table, glossy, professional, with a brick campus on the cover and words like merit-based and independent applicants highlighted in yellow. Think about it, she said. And if you want to talk more, my door is always open. I took the brochure home that night. I didn't throw it away. 3 days after the sure conversation, my father made it official. He called Principal Torres and requested time on the agenda for next week's school board meeting. Public comment period. 5 minutes for a family matter. Torres agreed. Of course she did. My father was a senior logistics manager at a Fortune 500 company and a frequent donor to the school's athletics program. When Richard Fletcher asked for something, people said yes. By lunch the next day, everyone knew. Dylan made sure of it. Did you hear? I overheard him telling his teammates in the cafeteria. Caitlin's gonna apologize to me in front of the whole board, and like half the parents are gonna be there. Finally, right? His friends laughed. A few looked uncomfortable, but nobody contradicted him. I kept walking, tray in hand, eyes forward. My best friend Emily caught up with me at our usual table by the windows. Is it true? She asked, sliding into the seat across from me. The board meeting? Yeah. Are you seriously going to apologize? I stabbed a fork into my salad. That's the plan. Emily lowered her voice. Kate, everyone knows you didn't say that stuff about Dylan. Marcus is full of it. Doesn't matter what everyone knows. It matters what my parents believe. This is insane. It's fine. I met her eyes. Trust me, I'll be there. She frowned, like she was trying to read between the lines, but I didn't give her anything else. By the end of the week, the rumor mill had turned me into either a villain who'd finally been caught or a martyr being sacrificed to save her brother's reputation. I didn't correct either version. I just kept my head down, finished my transfer paperwork, and scheduled an appointment with a notary public for Saturday morning. The board meeting was Monday night. I had 72 hours. Monday morning, the day of the board meeting. I arrived at school 45 minutes early, before most of the staff and long before any students. The hallways were empty, fluorescent lights humming overhead, the air still smelling faintly of industrial cleaner. I went straight to my locker. It took me less than 10 minutes to clear it out. My debate trophies, 3 of them, polished brass, each one engraved with first place and my name. The photo collage Emily had made me last year. My textbooks, already organized by subject. I packed everything into a canvas tote bag and closed the metal door one last time. The locker stayed empty, no note, no explanation. I walked to the main office next, where the attendance secretary was just logging into her computer. "Morning, Caitlin. You're here early. I need to drop something off for Principal Torres." She gestured toward the principal's door. "She's in. Go ahead." I knocked. Torres called for me to enter. She was sitting behind her desk, coffee in hand, reading through a stack of paperwork. When she saw what I was holding, a manila folder, neatly labeled, her expression shifted. "Caitlin?" I set the folder on her desk. "My transfer paperwork. Signed, notarized, effective immediately." She opened it slowly, scanning the first page. Her eyes widened when she reached the scholarship letter. Then the emancipation documents. "Are you sure about this?" Her voice was quiet. "I've never been more sure of anything." Torres closed the folder carefully. "Does your family know?" "They will. Tonight." She studied me for a long moment. Then she nodded. "I'll process this. You're a remarkable young woman, Caitlin. I hope you know that." I managed a small smile. "Thank you, Principal Torres." When I left her office, my hands were steady. Dylan found me at lunch. I was sitting with Emily in our usual spot, picking at a sandwich I wasn't hungry for, when he stormed up to our table. His face was flushed, eyes wild. "What the hell are you doing?" Emily looked up, startled. I set down my sandwich. "You're going to have to be more specific," I said calmly. "Your locker. It's empty. I saw it." He planted his hands on the table and leaned in. "Where's all your stuff?" "I cleaned it out." "Why?" "Does it matter?" "Yeah, it matters!" His voice was getting louder. People at nearby tables were starting to stare. "You're supposed to apologize tonight. You're supposed to—" "I'll be at the meeting," I interrupted. "I said I would. I'll be there." He stared at me, suspicion dawning in his eyes. "What did you do?" "Nothing you need to worry about." "Caitlin." I stood, gathering my trash. "I'll see you tonight, Dylan." I walked away before he could respond. Emily scrambled to follow me. "Kate, what's going on?" she whispered once we were in the hallway. "I'm transferring, Georgetown Prep, full scholarship." She stopped walking. "What?" "I'll explain later, I promise. But tonight at the board meeting," I paused. "Just trust me, okay?" She nodded slowly, still processing. By the time I got home that afternoon, Dylan had already called my parents. I could hear my father's voice booming from the study before I even opened the front door. When I stepped inside, all 3 of them were waiting in the living room. My father's face was red. My mother looked like she'd been crying, and Dylan stood near the fireplace, arms crossed, looking vindicated. "We need to talk," my father said, "now." My father stood in the center of the living room like a general addressing a deserter. "Dylan tells us you've cleared out your locker, and when I called the school, Principal Torres confirmed you've submitted transfer paperwork." He took a step toward me. "You can't do this without our permission. You're a minor." I pulled the folder from my backpack, copies, not originals, and handed it to him. He opened it, flipped through the pages. His expression darkened with each one. "What is this?" "Emancipation paperwork, approved and notarized." Under DC law, I've been financially independent for the past 8 months through tutoring income and a research assistant position. Mrs. Nguyen is listed as my sponsor. It's legal. My mother stood. Why are you doing this to us? That question. Like I was the one causing harm. Like I was the aggressor. I'm not doing anything to you, I said, keeping my voice level. I'm doing something for me. You're tearing this family apart, she said, tears spilling over. Over a misunderstanding. It's not a misunderstanding. Dylan lied. I didn't spread rumors about him, but instead of finding out the truth, you threatened to destroy my future unless I confessed to something I didn't do. My father's hands tightened on the folder. You are throwing away this family over teenage drama. You threw me away the moment you chose him over the truth. This is insane, Dylan said from the corner. You're being dramatic. I turned to him. I'm being free, there's a difference. My father slammed the folder down on the coffee table. If you walk out that door tonight, you're not welcome back. Do you understand me? Ever. I understand. My voice didn't shake. The board meeting starts at 7. I'll see you there. I walked upstairs to finish packing. Behind me, I heard my mother sobbing. I didn't look back. An hour later, my father tried one more time. He appeared in my doorway as I was zipping my duffel bag. I'd packed light, clothes for a week, toiletries, my laptop, and the trophies from my locker. Everything else could wait. Caitlin. His voice was quieter now, more dangerous. Let me make this very clear. If you walk out tonight, you're not welcome back. Not for holidays, not for birthdays. You'll be on your own, completely. I understand. Do you? He stepped into the room. Do you understand what you're giving up? This family, your home, everything we've provided for you. Everything you've provided came with conditions. I don't want it anymore. His jaw tightened. What will people think? You're making us look like terrible parents. There it was. Not are we terrible parents? But what will people think? I'm not making you look like anything, I said. I'm just telling the truth. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling Georgetown Prep right now. I'm withdrawing your enrollment. You can try. He dialed. Put it on speaker. A professional voice answered. Georgetown Preparatory Academy, how may I direct your call? Headmaster Blackwell, please. This is Richard Fletcher. A pause. Then Dr. Blackwell's voice came on the line, calm and measured. Mr. Fletcher, how can I help you? I need to withdraw my daughter's enrollment. There's been a misunderstanding. I'm sorry, Mr. Fletcher, but I can't discuss Miss Fletcher's enrollment with you. She's legally emancipated, and her scholarship and housing are in her name. If she wishes to make changes, she'll need to contact us directly. My father's face went white. Dr. Blackwell continued. We're honored to have her, sir. Good evening. The line went dead. At 6 o'clock, I sat at my desk and assembled 3 identical folders. Navy blue, professional. The kind you'd use for a business presentation. Inside each one, a printed copy of the Georgetown Prep Scholarship offer, signed by Dr. Martin Blackwell. Full merit-based, covering tuition, housing, and expenses. Awarded based on my research proposal about equitable access to mental health resources in secondary education. My emancipation paperwork, notarized and approved, showing 8 months of financial independence through tutoring revenue and my position as a research assistant for a local university professor. A transcript of the conversation from my father's office. The one where he'd threatened to cut off all financial support unless I apologized. Legal under DC's one-party consent recording law. I labeled each folder in neat handwriting. For Principal Torres, for the school board, for my records. My phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Nguyen. Ready? I'm outside. Almost. 5 minutes. Take your time. You've got this. I changed into the outfit I'd chosen carefully that morning. White button-down shirt, navy blazer, black slacks. The blazer was new. I'd bought it with my tutoring money 2 weeks ago. Georgetown Prep colors. Deliberate. I stood in front of my bedroom mirror and barely recognized myself. Not because I looked different, because for the first time in years, I looked like someone who wasn't afraid. I picked up my duffel bag, slung it over my shoulder, and grabbed the 3 folders. Downstairs, I could hear my parents talking in urgent, hushed voices. Dylan's heavier footsteps paced back and forth. I walked down the stairs one last time. They were all in the living room, dressed for the meeting. My mother had put on makeup to hide the fact that she'd been crying. My father wore a suit. Dylan looked nervous. "We're leaving in 10 minutes," my father said. "I'm riding with Mrs. Nguyen," I replied, and I walked out the door. The school's administrative building looked different at night. Harsh lights illuminated the front entrance, and cars packed the small parking lot, parents arriving for the board meeting. This wasn't a normal session. Word had spread about the family matter on the agenda. People were curious. Mrs. Nguyen parked near the back. She turned to me, her expression gentle but serious. "Last chance to change your mind." "I'm not changing my mind." "Good." She smiled. "Then let's go make some people uncomfortable." We walked in together. The meeting room was already half full. Parents in business casual, a few students scattered in the back rows, and the 7 board members seated at the long mahogany table at the front. Principal Torres sat off to the side, hands folded, watching people file in. My family was already there, front row, center. My father sat ramrod straight in a charcoal suit. My mother kept smoothing her skirt. Dylan slouched in his chair, scrolling through his phone, that same smirk on his face. He looked up when I walked in. The smirk faltered. I was wearing Georgetown prep colors, carrying folders, walking in with Mrs. Nguyen, who everyone knew was the guidance counselor who got kids into Ivy League schools. Something in his expression shifted. Confusion, then worry. I took a seat 3 rows back, on the opposite side of the room. Mrs. Nguyen sat beside me. The board chair, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and reading glasses on a chain, rapped her gavel on the table. "Good evening. This meeting of the school board is now in session. We have several items on the agenda tonight, including a request from Mr. Richard Fletcher for public comment time regarding a family matter." She looked directly at my father. "Mr. Fletcher, you have 5 minutes." My father stood, buttoning his suit jacket, and the performance began. My father approached the microphone at the front of the room with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no. "Thank you, Madam Chair, board members." He nodded respectfully. "I appreciate you giving me this time tonight." He turned slightly, addressing the room. The parents, the witnesses. "My family has been through a difficult situation recently. My son Dylan was involved in an altercation at school, something I'm sure many of you have heard about. A boy was hurt. That's serious, and we don't take it lightly." A few parents nodded. My mother sat very still, hands clasped in her lap. "But what led to that altercation," my father continued, "was equally serious. My daughter Caitlin—" He gestured toward me without looking directly at me. "Spread false information about Dylan to other students. She told people he'd cheated on an exam. Those rumors got back to the boy involved, and that's what sparked the fight." Murmurs rippled through the room. Now, we've always taught our children that actions have consequences, that when you make a mistake, you own it, you apologize, you make it right. His voice was steady, reasonable, the voice of a concerned father doing his best. "So we're here tonight because Caitlin has agreed to take responsibility, to apologize publicly to her brother and to this community for the harm she caused." He looked at the board members. "We love both our children equally, but part of loving them is teaching them accountability. We believe this is an important step forward for our family and for the integrity of this school community." Dylan sat up a little straighter, nodding along. Several parents exchanged glances. Some looked sympathetic. Others seemed uncomfortable, like they weren't sure this was appropriate for a public meeting. Principal Torres's expression was carefully neutral. My father returned to his seat. The board chair looked at me. "Miss Fletcher, would you like to respond?" I stood. I walked to the microphone, folders in hand. The room went silent. "Thank you, Madam Chair." My voice came out steady, clear. I do have a statement, but it's not an apology. A ripple of whispers. My father's head snapped toward me. I'm here tonight to inform the board and this community that I'm transferring to Georgetown Preparatory Academy, effective immediately. I've been awarded a full merit scholarship covering tuition, housing, and all expenses. The whispers grew louder. Dylan stood halfway up, then sat back down. My mother's face had gone pale. I handed the first folder to Principal Torres. She opened it, scanned the first page, and nodded. I'm also submitting documentation to the board. I passed the second folder to the chair. Inside, you'll find my scholarship offer letter from Dr. Martin Blackwell, headmaster of Georgetown Prep, as well as my emancipation paperwork, which has been legally notarized under DC law. I've been financially independent for 8 months through tutoring and a research assistant position. The board chair put on her reading glasses and began flipping through the pages. I turned to face the room, to face my parents. I'm also including a transcript of a private conversation in which I was threatened with the withdrawal of all educational and financial support unless I apologized for an incident I had no part in. That recording was made legally, with my consent, in compliance with DC's one-party consent law. My father shot to his feet. This is absurd! She's our daughter! We have rights! The board chair's gavel came down hard. Mr. Fletcher, please sit down. Miss Fletcher has the floor. He didn't sit. You can't just... Mr. Fletcher. The board chair's voice was firm. Sit down. Slowly, he sank back into his chair. I kept my eyes on the board. I'm not asking for permission. I'm informing you of my decision, which is legal, documented, and final. The board chair was still reading through my folder, her expression unreadable. One of the other board members, a man in his 40s who I recognized as a local attorney, leaned over to read along with her. These documents appear to be in order, the chair said carefully. Miss Fletcher, can you explain the circumstances that led to your emancipation petition? Yes, ma'am. I kept my voice even, professional. For the past 8 months, I've supported myself financially through private tutoring and a research assistant position with Dr. Sarah Martinez at Georgetown University. I earn approximately $900 per month, which covers my personal expenses and savings. Mrs. Patricia Nguyen, my guidance counselor, served as my sponsor for the emancipation process. Mrs. Nguyen stood briefly. I can confirm that, Madam Chair. The attorney board member spoke up. And Georgetown Prep scholarship? Can you tell us more about that? It's merit-based. I submitted a research proposal about equitable access to mental health resources in secondary education. The scholarship covers full tuition, housing, and a stipend for educational expenses. Dr. Blackwell awarded it based on academic achievement and the strength of my research. When were you notified? 3 months ago. More whispers. My father's face had gone from red to almost purple. The board chair set down the folder. Mr. Fletcher, were you aware of your daughter's emancipation status? No. His voice was tight. Because it's nonsense. She's 17. She can't just... Actually, she can. The attorney board member tapped the paperwork. If she meets the financial independence threshold and has an approved sponsor, emancipation is legal in DC for minors 16 and older, and these documents are properly notarized and filed. My father looked at my mother. She was crying silently, mascara running down her cheeks. But, he started. Mr. Fletcher, the chair interrupted, if these documents are legitimate, and they appear to be, then Miss Fletcher no longer requires parental consent for educational decisions. My father stood again, his hands gripping the back of the chair in front of him. This is a family matter, he said, voice shaking. It should be handled privately, not in front of... You're the one who requested public comment time, I said quietly. He whirled toward me. You manipulated this entire situation. You planned this. I protected myself. There's a difference. The board chair rapped her gavel again. Mr. Fletcher, I understand this is emotional, but please refrain from outbursts. My daughter is making a huge mistake. With all due respect, the attorney board member interrupted, she's exercising her legal rights. And from what I'm reading here, she has good reason to. My father's mouth opened and closed. The board chair looked at me. Miss Fletcher, you mentioned an incident involving your brother. Can you clarify? I took a breath. This was the part that mattered. Not just for me, but for Marcus Smith. My brother Dylan assaulted another student, Marcus Smith, 2 weeks ago. Marcus suffered a broken nose and a concussion. Dylan justified the assault by claiming I had spread rumors about him cheating on an exam, which provoked Marcus to confront him. I paused. I never said anything of the sort. I have never discussed Dylan's academic record with Marcus or anyone else. Dylan lied to avoid taking responsibility for his actions. The room erupted. Parents turned to each other, whispering urgently. Someone in the back row said, "Wait, the Smith kid? I heard about that." Principal Torres stood. "I can confirm that our investigation found no evidence connecting Miss Fletcher to the altercation. Dylan's disciplinary hearing is still pending." Dylan was staring at me like I'd just set his entire world on fire. My father looked around the room, realizing too late that the narrative had shifted. And it wasn't shifting back. I want to pause here for just a second. If you've ever felt invisible in your own home, like no matter what you did, it would never be enough, drop A in the comments. I see you. And if you're rooting for me right now, hit that like button. Let's see how many of you are here for the comeback. Stick around. You won't believe what happens next at this meeting. The board chair called for order, her gavel coming down 3 times before the noise died. "Miss Fletcher," she said, "are you saying your brother fabricated the accusation against you?" "Yes, ma'am." "And you're stating for the record that you had no involvement in the incident that led to Marcus Smith's injury?" "Correct. I've never spoken to Marcus about my brother. Not about cheating, not about anything. Dylan needed someone to blame, and I was convenient." Principal Torres stepped forward. "The school's investigation supports Miss Fletcher's account. We interviewed multiple students. No one could corroborate Dylan's claim that his sister had been spreading rumors. In fact, several students stated they'd never heard her speak about her brother at all." A parent near the front raised her hand. "I know the Smith family. That boy was hospitalized. Are you saying Dylan just attacked him for no reason?" "There was a reason," I said. "Dylan has a temper. He doesn't handle criticism well, and when Marcus questioned something he said, I don't know what exactly, Dylan reacted with violence. Then he blamed me to make himself look like the victim." My father was on his feet again. "That's not— Dylan was defending himself." "Against what?" I turned to face him directly. "Marcus weighs maybe 130 pounds. He's in the orchestra. He's not a fighter. Dylan outweighs him by 50 pounds and plays varsity soccer. There was no self-defense. There was just Dylan, angry, and someone smaller who couldn't fight back." My mother was sobbing openly now. Dylan's face had gone bright red. "You're lying. You've always hated me." "I don't hate you," I said, and I meant it. "But I won't be punished for your choices anymore." The board chair looked at Principal Torres. "Has the family of the injured student been informed of tonight's testimony?" "I'll contact them immediately," Torres said. "See that you do. And Dylan Fletcher's hearing will be escalated. This board takes violence seriously." The door at the back of the room opened. Everyone turned. A man in his mid-50s entered, wearing a charcoal suit with a Georgetown prep pin on his lapel. His hair was silver, his posture straight, and he carried himself with the quiet authority of someone who'd spent decades in education. Dr. Martin Blackwell. "My apologies for the interruption," he said, his voice calm but carrying easily through the room. "I'm Dr. Blackwell, headmaster of Georgetown Preparatory Academy. I wanted to be here in person to address any questions about Miss Fletcher's enrollment." The board chair blinked. "Dr. Blackwell, this is unexpected. Mrs. Nguyen informed me of tonight's meeting. Given the circumstances, I thought it important to clarify Georgetown Prep's position." He walked to the front, nodding respectfully to the board. "Caitlin Fletcher has been accepted to our school with a full merit scholarship. That scholarship was awarded based on her exceptional academic record, her leadership in debate, and her research proposal on adolescent mental health policy, which impressed our entire scholarship committee. He turned to look at me, and his expression softened. Miss Fletcher, we're proud to have you. Your work is exactly the kind of thoughtful, compassionate inquiry we value. A few parents murmured approvingly. Dr. Blackwell addressed my father next. Mr. Fletcher, I understand this is difficult, but I want to assure you and this community that your daughter's decision was not impulsive. She's been in contact with our admissions office for months. She earned this opportunity. My father said nothing. He looked gutted. Caitlin's housing at Georgetown begins tonight, Dr. Blackwell continued. She'll be staying in our campus dormitory, fully supported by our staff. We take our duty of care very seriously. The board chair nodded slowly. Thank you, Dr. Blackwell. I think that clarifies things considerably. My mother stood. Her voice was shaking, but she forced it to sound calm. She cleared her throat. We only wanted what was best for Caitlin. This scholarship is wonderful, and we're proud of her. But she's still so young, 17. We just want to make sure she's not making a decision she'll regret. It was a decent attempt at damage control. She was trying to reframe the narrative, make it sound like concerned parenting instead of what it actually was, but I was done letting them rewrite history. Mom, my voice was gentle but firm. I'm not asking you to agree with my decision. I'm telling you goodbye. Her face crumpled. My father tried one more time. Caitlin, we can discuss this at home. This is not the place. I don't live there anymore. I looked at Dr. Blackwell. My housing starts tonight. Mrs. Nguyen is driving me to campus after this meeting. My father turned to the board chair, desperate now. She's being influenced. Someone is manipulating her. Mr. Fletcher. The board chair's tone was final. Your daughter is legally emancipated. She's presented documentation of financial independence, academic merit, and a full scholarship to a prestigious institution. Unless you have evidence of coercion or fraud, which you clearly don't, this matter is resolved. She looked at me. Miss Fletcher, on behalf of this board, I want to commend you for your courage and your preparation. You've handled this situation with remarkable maturity. Thank you, ma'am. She nodded. This meeting is adjourned. The gavel came down. People began standing, gathering their things, whispering to one another. Several parents glanced at my family with expressions ranging from pity to disapproval. My father sat frozen. Dylan stared at the floor. And my mother just kept crying. As people filed out, the whispers grew louder. I stayed near the front with Mrs. Nguyen and Dr. Blackwell, close enough to hear fragments of conversation. Did you hear that recording part? They threatened to cut her off? Over something she didn't even do. That's abuse, isn't it? And the brother, sending a kid to the hospital and then blaming his sister? What kind of family? A woman I recognized from the PTA approached my mother. For a moment I thought she might offer comfort. Instead, she said, voice cold, Susan, I think you and Richard need to take a hard look at your parenting choices. My mother flinched. Another parent, a father whose son was on Dylan's soccer team, shook his head as he passed. I always thought you guys had it together. Guess you never know. Dylan was surrounded by a few of his teammates, but they looked uncomfortable. One of them muttered, Dude, you lied about your sister? That's messed up. Dylan shoved past them and walked out. My father tried to approach the board chair, probably to plead his case one more time, but she held up a hand. Mr. Fletcher, I think it's best if we table any further discussion. Your family needs time to process. It was a polite dismissal. He stood there for a moment, jaw working, then turned and followed Dylan out the door. My mother lingered, looking at me across the room. Her eyes were red, makeup ruined. For a second, I thought she might say something. But she didn't. She just turned and left. Principal Torres approached me quietly. Caitlin, if you need anything, references, transcripts, anything at all, please let me know. Thank you, Principal Torres. You deserved better than this, she said softly. I didn't have an answer for that, so I just nodded. Mrs. Nguyen was waiting by her car in the parking lot when I finally walked out. The cool night air hit me, and for the first time all evening, I let myself breathe. "Ready?" she asked. I nodded, unable to speak past the sudden tightness in my throat. She opened the passenger door for me, then went around to the driver's side. As she started the engine, she glanced at me. "You okay?" "I think so." My voice sounded strange, distant. "I will be." "You handled that with more grace than most adults could manage." She pulled out of the parking lot, past the rows of cars still emptying. "I'm proud of you, Caitlin." "Thank you. For everything. For believing me when—" I stopped, swallowing hard. "When they didn't." "You didn't need me to believe you. You knew the truth. I just held the door open." We drove in silence for a few minutes. I looked out the window and saw my parents' Audi parked under a streetlight. They were sitting inside, not moving. Dylan was in the back seat, hunched over his phone. They looked small. For the first time in my life, they didn't look powerful. They looked lost. I turned away. Mrs. Nguyen reached over and squeezed my hand briefly. "You know what the bravest thing you did tonight was?" "What?" "You chose yourself. A lot of people never learn how to do that." I looked down at my hands, still holding the third folder, the one marked for my records. "I didn't feel brave," I admitted. "That's because courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing the right thing, even when you're terrified." I managed a small smile. "Did you get that from a fortune cookie?" She laughed. "Probably, but it's still true." Georgetown Prep's campus looked like something out of a movie at night. Brick buildings with ivy climbing the walls, wrought iron lampposts casting pools of warm light on stone pathways, students walking in small groups, laughing, carrying books and coffee cups. It looked like a place where people belonged. Mrs. Nguyen walked me to the dormitory, a 3-story building near the center of campus. The resident advisor, a college-aged woman with kind eyes and a Georgetown Prep hoodie, met us at the entrance. "Caitlin Fletcher?" "That's me." "Welcome. I'm Sarah, your RA. Dr. Blackwell called ahead. Your room's all set." She handed me a key card. "Third floor, room 312. It's a single, so you'll have privacy. If you need anything, and I mean anything, my room is 301. Don't hesitate." "Thank you." Mrs. Nguyen hugged me in the doorway. "You have my number. Call me any time, day or night." "I will." "I mean it, Caitlin. You're not alone." I hugged her tighter. "I know." When she left, I took the stairs to the third floor. Room 312 was small but clean. A twin bed with a navy comforter, a desk by the window, a closet, a bookshelf. Everything simple and functional. I set my duffel bag on the bed and looked around. No one was yelling. No one was crying. No one was blaming me for things I didn't do. It was quiet. I sat down at the desk and opened my laptop. 37 text messages, 12 missed calls, all from my family. I didn't read them. I blocked all 3 numbers, cleared the notifications, and closed the phone. Then I looked out the window at the campus below. Students moving between buildings, living their lives, free and unburdened. For the first time in 17 years, I went to bed without wondering if I was enough. Here, I already was. A week later, I received an email from Principal Torres. I was sitting in Georgetown Prep's library, a beautiful space with high ceilings, tall windows, and shelves that smelled like old paper and possibility, when my laptop pinged. Subject: Update regarding Dylan Fletcher. Dear Caitlin, I wanted to inform you that following the school board meeting and subsequent investigation, Dylan Fletcher has been suspended for the remainder of the semester. He will be required to complete his coursework remotely and will transfer to another school in the fall. Additionally, the Smith family has been made aware of the circumstances surrounding the altercation. They've chosen not to pursue criminal charges, but Dylan is required to complete anger management counseling and community service as part of a restorative justice agreement. I hope this brings you some closure. You were very brave to speak up, not just for yourself, but for Marcus as well. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you need anything. Best regards, Principal Karen Torres. I read it twice. Then I typed a short reply. Thank you for letting me know. I hope Dylan gets the help he needs, and I hope Marcus is healing. Caitlin. I closed the laptop and leaned back in my chair. Dylan had consequences, real ones. Not a lecture or a slap on the wrist, but actual accountability. And Marcus had been heard. His family knew the truth now. It didn't undo the harm. It didn't erase what happened, but it was something. My phone buzzed. A text from Emily, my best friend from my old school. Everyone's talking about what you did. You're kind of a legend. I smiled and typed back. I'm just a person who got tired of being quiet. Still, you're my hero. I set the phone down and looked around the library. I didn't need to be a hero. I just needed to be free. 2 weeks after the board meeting, my mother sent an email. I'd unblocked her number long enough to see if there were any emergencies, then immediately regretted it. 3 voicemails, 7 texts, all variations of, "We need to talk and please come home." But the email was different. Subject: I miss you, Caitlin. I know you're angry, and you have every right to be. Your father and I made mistakes. We didn't listen the way we should have. We let Dylan get away with too much, and we put you in an impossible position. I miss you. The house feels empty without you. I keep going into your room and thinking about all the times I should have been there and wasn't. I'm not asking you to forgive us right away. I just want to talk. Can we meet for coffee? Or lunch? Anything. I love you. Mom. I stared at the screen for a long time. Part of me wanted to believe her. Part of me wanted to respond immediately, to say yes, to rebuild something. But another part, the part that had learned to protect itself, knew better. Words were easy. Change was hard. I waited 3 days before replying. Mom, I appreciate you reaching out. I'm not ready to reconnect right now. I need time to build my own life, away from the dynamics that hurt me. That doesn't mean I'll never be ready, but I can't predict when or if that will happen. If and when I'm ready to talk, I'll let you know. Until then, please respect this boundary. Caitlin. Her reply came within an hour. I understand. I'll wait. I love you. I didn't respond. My father never emailed, never called. His pride wouldn't allow it. Dylan sent one text 2 weeks later. I'm sorry, I read it. I didn't reply. An apology without changed behavior was just manipulation with better grammar. If he wanted forgiveness, he'd have to earn it. And I wasn't holding my breath. 3 weeks into the semester, I auditioned for Georgetown Prep's debate team. I almost didn't. The old fear crept in, the voice that said I wasn't good enough, that I'd only been captain at my old school because the competition wasn't serious, that here, surrounded by kids from elite backgrounds, I'd be exposed as a fraud. But I went anyway. The tryouts were held in a lecture hall with dark wood paneling and portraits of distinguished alumni lining the walls. 8 students showed up. I recognized a few from my classes, sharp, confident, the kind of kids who'd been groomed for success since birth. The team captain, a senior named Marcus, different Marcus, not the one from my old school, handed out the debate prompt. Should educational institutions prioritize merit-based or equity-based admissions policies? We had 15 minutes to prepare, then 2 minutes to argue. I went last. When it was my turn, I stood at the podium and made my case, not just with facts and logic, but with the weight of lived experience. I talked about access and opportunity, about how merit without equity was just privilege rebranded, about how the best schools claimed to want diversity, but never interrogated the systems that determined who got to be excellent in the first place. When I finished, the room was silent. Then Marcus grinned. That was flawless. Where'd you learn to structure an argument like that? Life experience, I said. He laughed. You're on varsity. Welcome to the team. That night, the team went out for pizza. Real pizza, not the fancy kind my old family ordered. We crowded into a booth, argued about everything from foreign policy to whether pineapple belonged on pizza, and for the first time in months, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. No performance, no pretending, just me. Real quick, if you've ever walked away from people who didn't value you and found your people on the other side, drop a comment. I'd love to hear your story. And if you're rooting for this version of my life, the one where I get to just be, hit that subscribe button. There's more to this story, and I think you'll want to hear how it ends. Now, let's talk about what happened next. Spring semester brought the annual Georgetown Prep Scholarship Gala. It was held in a ballroom off campus, chandeliers dripping crystal, round tables dressed in white linen, a stage at the front with a podium and microphone. Parents and donors filled the room, dressed in cocktails attire, sipping wine and writing checks to support the next generation of students. I wore a navy dress, simple, elegant, purchased with money I'd saved from tutoring. Mrs. Nguyen had helped me pick it out. She was there that night too, sitting at a table near the front. Dr. Blackwell took the stage after dinner. Tonight, we celebrate the students who embody Georgetown Prep's values: academic excellence, intellectual curiosity, and a commitment to using their gifts to serve others. He listed several names: students who'd published research, won national competitions, earned early admission to Ivy League schools. Then he said mine. Caitlin Fletcher joined us mid-year as a merit scholar. In just 6 months, she's become captain of our varsity debate team, published an article in the Journal of Adolescent Health Policy, and founded a peer mentorship program for first-generation college students. I hadn't realized how much I'd done until I heard it spoken aloud. Caitlin exemplifies what it means to overcome adversity with grace and intellect. Would you please join me in welcoming her to the stage? Applause filled the room. I walked to the podium, heart pounding. Thank you, Dr. Blackwell. I looked out at the audience, donors, parents, students, and Mrs. Nguyen, who was wiping her eyes. I'm here tonight because people believed in my potential when my circumstances didn't. Mrs. Nguyen, my guidance counselor, saw something in me I couldn't see in myself. Dr. Blackwell and this school gave me a chance when I needed it most. I paused. To anyone watching who feels trapped, by family, by expectations, by people who underestimate you, your worth isn't defined by who believes in you. Find your door. Walk through it. You deserve a place where you don't have to shrink to fit. The applause was louder this time. After the speeches, I found Mrs. Nguyen near the back of the ballroom. She was standing by one of the tall windows, looking out at the garden lights, and when she saw me approaching, she smiled. You did beautifully up there. I hugged her. Thank you, for everything, for seeing me when no one else did. She hugged me back, and when we pulled apart, her eyes were red. You did this yourself, Caitlin. I just held the door open. You held more than that. My voice cracked. You held space for me when I didn't have anywhere safe to go. You gave me options when I thought I didn't have any. I stopped, trying to find the right words. You saved my life. Mrs. Nguyen shook her head gently. You saved your own life. I just reminded you that you could. We stood there in silence for a moment, watching the other guests mingle. Can I ask you something? I said. Of course. Why did you help me? You barely knew me. She tilted her head, considering. I've been a counselor for 25 years. I've seen a lot of kids slip through the cracks because no one bothered to look twice. You were brilliant, hardworking, and kind, but you were invisible in your own home. That's not fair, and I couldn't let it continue. You didn't have to do all this. Yes, I did. Her voice was firm. Because if I didn't, who would? Kids like you are the reason I still do this job. You're the reason I believe education can change lives. I didn't trust myself to speak, so I just hugged her again. Go enjoy the rest of your night, she said, smiling. You've earned it. 18 months passed. My family didn't come to the gala. I hadn't invited them, and they hadn't asked. There was no tearful reunion, no grand apology, no movie-perfect moment where everyone hugged and promised to do better. My mother sent occasional emails, updates about the family, questions about school, carefully worded attempts to rebuild a connection. I replied politely but briefly. Surface-level conversations, nothing deep. My father never reached out, not once. And Dylan tried, eventually. 6 months after the board meeting, he sent another message. I'm in therapy now. Real therapy, not just the anger management the school made me do. I'm starting to understand why I acted the way I did, why I blamed you. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just want you to know I'm trying to be better. I read it 3 times before responding. I'm glad you're getting help. I hope it works for you. That was all. A month later, he sent another. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I am sorry. For everything, for lying, for making you the scapegoat, for being the reason you had to leave. I responded again, just as briefly. I didn't leave because of you. I left because I needed to choose myself. He didn't message again after that. And I was okay with it. Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. Some are meant to be left behind so you can build new roads forward. I didn't hate my family. I didn't wish them harm. But I also didn't owe them access to my life, just because we shared DNA. Forgiveness wasn't mandatory, healing was. And I chose to heal in a place where I wasn't being hurt. By the end of my senior year, I'd applied to 6 internships. I got 5 offers. The one I accepted was from the Brookings Institution, a policy think tank in Washington, D.C., focused on education reform and social equity. It was competitive, unpaid, but prestigious. The kind of opportunity that opened doors. The acceptance email arrived on a Tuesday morning. Dear Miss Fletcher, we are pleased to offer you a summer research internship with our education policy program. Your proposal on equitable scholarship access for underrepresented students was exceptional, and we believe your perspective will be invaluable to our team. I read it sitting in my dorm room, coffee going cold on my desk, and I just smiled. A year and a half ago, I'd been sitting in my childhood bedroom, terrified and trapped, wondering how I'd survive without my parents' support. Now I had an internship at one of the most respected think tanks in the country. I called Mrs. Nguyen. I got it, I said as soon as she picked up. The Brookings internship? Yes. She let out a delighted laugh. Caitlin, that's incredible. I'm so proud of you. I want to help other kids, I told her. Kids like me, kids who need a way out but don't know where to start. Then you're already doing it, she said gently. Just by existing, just by showing them it's possible. That summer, I worked in a glass office building in downtown D.C., researching funding gaps in public education and drafting policy recommendations. I sat in meetings with people who'd written books I'd read in high school. I learned how to turn lived experience into data, how to make a case for change that people in power couldn't ignore. And every day, I walked into that building knowing I'd earned my seat at the table. No one had given it to me. I'd built it myself. One quiet evening in late summer, I sat on the steps of Georgetown Prep's main campus building and opened my journal. I'd started keeping one after my first therapy session, something my counselor at school had suggested. A way to process everything that had happened. A way to hold space for the grief and the relief that somehow coexisted. I wrote slowly, thinking through each sentence. A year ago, I thought leaving meant losing. I thought walking away made me weak, made me the bad guy in my own family's story. I was wrong. Leaving was the bravest thing I've ever done, not because it was loud or dramatic, but because it was quiet, planned, and mine. My parents wanted me to apologize for existing outside their narrative, for being someone they couldn't control. I refused. And instead of shrinking to fit their expectations, I built a new life where I didn't have to. I don't hate them. I don't even blame them anymore. Not really. They did the best they could with the tools they had. It just wasn't enough. And that's not my responsibility to fix. To anyone reading this someday, you are not obligated to stay in spaces that diminish you, not even family. Especially not family. You're allowed to choose yourself. You're allowed to set boundaries. You're allowed to walk away without guilt. I didn't lose a family. I gained myself. I closed the journal and looked out at the campus. Students were scattered across the lawn, studying, laughing, living. The evening light turned everything golden. I thought about the girl I'd been a year ago, scared, trapped, desperate. And I thought about the person I was now, free, strong, whole. I wasn't perfect. I still had hard days. I still missed the idea of a family that loved me unconditionally. But I had something better. I had me. And that was enough. A year after the board meeting, I received a message through the alumni network of my old school. The sender was Marcus Smith. Hi, Caitlin. I know this is out of the blue, and I totally understand if you don't want to respond. But I wanted to reach out and say thank you. I heard what you said at the school board meeting. About Dylan lying. About what really happened. My family wanted to press charges after the fight, but the school tried to bury the whole thing. They made it sound like I'd provoked him, like I was partially responsible. Your testimony changed that. The school reopened the investigation, and Dylan had to go through restorative justice. He apologized, actually apologized, and he's in counseling now. I don't know if it'll stick, but at least someone held him accountable. More than that, though, seeing you stand up for yourself, and for me, even though we barely knew each other, gave me the courage to do the same. I transferred schools too. I'm at a place where people don't look the other way when someone gets hurt. Anyway, I just wanted to say thank you. You didn't have to speak up, but you did. And it mattered. I hope you're doing well. Marcus. I read the message 3 times. Then I wrote back. Marcus, I'm so sorry you went through that. You deserved better from the school, from my family, and from everyone who looked the other way. I'm glad you're in a better place now, and I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. You didn't deserve what happened. None of it. Take care of yourself. Caitlin. I hit send and sat back. Dylan had consequences. Marcus had justice, at least some version of it. And I'd spoken up not just for me, but for someone who couldn't speak for himself. That mattered. During my second year at Georgetown Prep, I volunteered as a peer mentor for incoming students. It wasn't required. I just wanted to give back. One afternoon, a freshman named Lily knocked on my dorm room door. She was small, nervous, clutching a folder of paperwork like it was a life raft. Hi, Mrs. Nguyen said I should talk to you. Mrs. Nguyen had stayed in touch, even after I'd graduated from her school. She still referred students to me, kids who needed advice, who were navigating complicated family situations, who didn't know where to turn. Come in, I said, stepping aside. Lily sat on the edge of my desk chair and told me her story. Her parents wanted her to study pre-med. She wanted to study art. They'd threatened to pull funding if she didn't comply. She felt trapped. I listened without interrupting. When she finished, I said, "You have options. It might not feel like it right now, but you do." Like what? I pulled up a list on my laptop: scholarship databases, emancipation resources, financial aid information, counseling services. Start here. You don't have to make any big decisions today, but you can start gathering information, building a backup plan, just in case. Her eyes widened. You really think I could? I know you can. I did it. So did a lot of other people. She left an hour later with a folder full of printouts and a look of cautious hope on her face. A week later, she texted me. I talked to the financial aid office. There are options, thank you. I smiled. Someone once told me that talent doesn't need permission, it just needs the right door. I was learning that the best thing you can do once you walk through your door is hold it open for someone else. On a cool morning in late October, I sat on the brick steps of Georgetown Prep's main building, a coffee from the campus cafe in one hand and my laptop balanced on my knees. Students streamed past, laughing, arguing about assignments, complaining about exams. Normal college chaos, the kind of chaos that felt like home. My email pinged. It was from Brookings. Caitlin, we were so impressed with your summer work that we'd like to extend your internship into the academic year. You'd work remotely during the school year and return to DC for the summer. If you're interested, let us know. I stared at the screen. A year and a half ago, I'd been sitting in my childhood home, convinced I had no future without my parents' support. Now I had a school that valued me, a mentor who believed in me, friends who saw me, and an internship that could launch my career before I even graduated. I typed back immediately. I'd be honored. Thank you. I closed the laptop and looked out across the campus. The autumn leaves were just starting to turn, gold and red against the brick buildings, the morning light making everything look like a painting. My phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Nguyen. How's everything going? Good. Really good. Proud of you, kiddo. I smiled and put the phone away. A group of freshmen walked past, one of them carrying a Georgetown prep hoodie. Another was talking about a debate competition. They looked nervous, excited, like they belonged but weren't quite sure yet. I remembered that feeling. I stood, picked up my coffee, and headed toward the library. I had work to do, papers to write, a future to build. They'd thought taking away their support would break me. Instead, it taught me I never needed it. I had everything I needed all along, myself. Thank you for staying with me through this whole story. If this resonated with you, if you've ever had to choose yourself over people who didn't choose you, leave a comment. I read every single one, and your stories matter. If you want to see more stories about setting boundaries and reclaiming your life, hit that subscribe button. There are more stories waiting, and I'd love to have you here for them. And if you or someone you know is in a situation like mine, check the description. I've linked resources on emancipation, scholarship programs, and family counseling. Remember, you're not trapped. You're just planning your exit. See you in the next one.